Good morning and welcome to A Better World with Julann and Fran. I'm Julann.
And I am Fran. And today we have a very special guest, Joyce Morales. And she is a certified hypnotherapist, a spirit releasement therapist, and a mental health therapist. Welcome, Joyce.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to meet you guys and to join in.
Okay, and
Thank you.
could you talk a little bit about some of the things that you're doing that are making the world a better place, please?
Uh, wow. Well, I do what I can, but mostly my clients tend to come to me because they're struggling with codependency and or they identify themselves as being an empath. So uh, as far as that goes, I really try to focus on helping them feel more grounded and safer in their bodies and to help them understand their gifts so that they can use them better in a healthy way instead of having like unhealthy relationships. So, I'm dealing with people on individual levels, but in the end, it ripples out and kind of helps the community, through the quality of their relationships, whether it's at home or, at work. So.
Absolutely. And for people who might not know what codependency and empath mean, might I ask you to explain them a little bit?
Okay. So for people who are struggling with codependency, excuse me, um, they'll have a more difficult time with boundaries. Um, they may feel like they need to overserve or overgive, or, some may identify as they say that they love hard.
Oh,
So they're not just, they're all in, but they also to the point where they can sometimes lose themselves in their relationships, or they sometimes can betray themselves in relationships and tolerate behaviors that from their partners that they shouldn't, or that end up taking them in a direction that's not healthy for them. So it's really just when they're struggling with themselves and their own sense of self, their self-worth, and being able to give themselves permission to have needs in a relationship without having to try to elicit it from the other person and like convince them that they deserve it, so that they just should be able to inherently understand that just by being human we are deserving of love and respect, and have a right to our autonomy, and so that they can feel um, more whole and more complete. So when they show up in a relationship, whether it's at work or in a romantic relationship or with their kids, that they're being a whole person. And then that gives they actually will in the end feel more loved because they're showing up and they're letting that person love them for who they really are versus how they're serving that other person.
And they love themselves more.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
realize it's okay to,
Right.
take care of yourself too. Nice.
Exactly.
do you find that there's a particular type of person that generally you discover to be codependent or they turn out to be codependent?
Um, well, I don't know. I would say maybe we need to quantify that a little bit. It's a behavior set of people. They tend to be have an anxious attachment style. As far as, like, is it mostly men or mostly women? No, it can be across the board and it shows up in all demographics. I would say a lot of them um, grew up in households that were maybe, you know, divorced when
Mm.
they were young, and their parents were not always attentive to their emotional needs. And so they learned to kind of self-sacrifice, or they had to sometimes pacify the parent so that it felt safer. And they accidentally carried these behaviors into adulthood.
Very interesting. Um,
Very.
yeah, and do you and empaths.
Yeah, a lot of people who don't aren't familiar with the term codependent, they especially if they lean more towards spiritual stuff, they may identify as being an empath. So, in general, it's really kind of, I think, in my opinion, my professional opinion, that we're talking about the same thing. That they register really high on an empathic scale because it's different than normal empathy. where if I stub my toe, you would like, oh, I'm so sorry, that you stubbed your toe. Like, I feel for you. But where it's a bit more severe, where if somebody is angry, they also feel it, or they also feel unsafe because that person's angry. And so then so they kind of go like hand in hand, where then they feel like, oh, now I have to make this person not angry so that I feel safe. So, they're not exactly the same thing, but they have a tendency to run kind of with each other. So the being able to be safely embodied and be like, it's okay that you're angry, and to let people have their emotions instead of trying to fix everything is really important behavior pattern to learn.
Do you find you're helping them set boundaries, I guess, right? So that
Uh,
they
yeah,
don't.
a lot of it is that I do somatic work with a lot of them. We'll do emotional freedom technique, which is tapping to help them feel safer. We'll do some C.Ht techniques in order to vent this tension and this anxiety and this discomfort out of their body, because sometimes they don't know how to necessarily express what they're feeling and what they're going through. So like helping them get it out of their body first so that they can be calm, present, they're out of their fight or flight, fawn responses, and they can be present, and then they can go back to being logical about like, okay, well, is that person, is it really your fault that this person is mad? Is it actually something that you need to apologize for or fix? Or do you just want to fix it because you're not comfortable with them being upset? Or, it goes in a bunch of different directions. But in general, it's mostly teaching them that they have the tools. Because my goal is not that they ever need me. It's that they learn these goals. And so, because I don't want people to be dependent on me, I just want to help them learn
Exactly.
what they need, so
Right.
that eventually when they go do their own stuff, that they know that they can handle it, and they feel a little bit safer being out in the world and having to go do all the things that they're doing.
That's great. And Fran and I always talk about things that we do that, we try to treat everybody with compassion, and we try to be good no matter
Yeah.
where we go, right? Smile,
Right.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, help people. Do you think one of the things I think is that we got away a little bit from teaching, or it seems, teaching children to be, to say hello, to be open, to be kinder. Do you think something like this would be a good thing to help younger people? Like maybe, like you said, it maybe divorced. You're seeing adults that have had issues when they were younger. Do
Yeah.
you think starting early to help a child in a situation, I know that kids will do therapies, but do you think this
Mhm.
would be something that could benefit them as they're younger, so that when they
Oh
do
yeah.
get to adulthood, right? I
Absolutely.
think I think there are things that, as parents and as maybe educators, that we could do in younger grades, in
Mhm.
letting kids talk about things or helping them in certain ways. Maybe this is something too that would benefit once a week
I
or something, you
Yes,
know?
I definitely agree. I think in the schools, for the most part, they're really working with social emotional learning. And the current theme is that they've been trying to work more with that. And I think it's really important because kids can learn to identify uh, what their emotions are, right? And it, and also to have that emotional intelligence to like, okay, well, if my fellow student is, acting like this, they might feel that, it's like this wheelhouse of things that they could be feeling in this type of situation. What can I do to make it easier or better for them? I think a lot of the schools are already starting to include that, but I do think some of the somatic stuff would be beneficial because um, not everything is always solved by talking.
Right.
We have a very physical, visceral response to a lot of the things that we feel. And, maybe punching something is not appropriate, right? But
Right.
if you feel like you need to defend yourself, you can get this rush of blood and energy that feels like it's going down your arms into your hands. You need to do something with it. And if that's not an appropriate behavior for the situation that you're in,
Right.
right? Then the you don't get to complete an action. So there's something in your body that is telling you to still hold on to this energy, and it can like accumulate and get stuck. Um, and so even if you didn't necessarily want to do like EFT tapping, but acupuncture might be good, or some other different type of somatic yoga is also good for different stuff where we are learning how to actually get it out of our body and we let it pass,
Right.
and sometimes there'll be, deep crying out of where you think nowhere, but it's just been stored in the tissues and in the fascia for so long.
It's amazing. It's very interesting.
It really is.
It is.
You use the term C.Ht.
Yeah.
Could you explain what that is, please?
So there's a process where it's a combination between muscle testing, right? And so if I was with a client in person, most of my clients are remote, but if I was with a client in person, I might have them put their arm out and I'd ask them how they feel about something, and I would push on their arm to see if the arm is strong and it's able to keep itself up, then their body feels okay with it, right? It might not be their favorite, but they feel like secure. And then if we're talking about something, either if they're being dishonest about something or it doesn't feel good to them, it makes them feel unsafe, then they would have muscle weakness, right? When I'm online with someone, I'll have them just do like a small finger, muscle test with their fingers this way, where they make like they link them and they try to pull them apart. So if it's strong and it doesn't break, then they're okay with whatever it is that we're talking about. And if it's weak and the link breaks easy, then then that's where we need to do some work. And that way I can kind of see, and it's in frame where I can see how they are with stuff, and they give me some real feedback. And then we'll go into a posture where their ankles are crossed and their arms, it's hard to do in the in the screen,
Right.
but if you extended both your arms and then you cross them like this, right, you can leave them extended down or curl them up into your chest, but you sit with um, the topic that we were talking about. So if it was something that was distressing to you, I'm like, okay, look, I want you to understand the next 5 minutes might be kind of uncomfortable, but it's better to get it out so that it's not doesn't keep resurfacing. So, and I give them a heads up first, because you might have some big emotions that come up, because it's like the steam is starting to come out. Um, I process a lot of my thoughts kind of auditory, so I hear crosstalk. It's like I can hear my brain giving itself therapy. Other people might just feel physically kind of pulled back and forth while they're doing it, but they sit with it long enough for it to come out. And once they start to get to the point where they start to feel relief, then we'll close it off with it's a mudra, but it's kind of like a power position, but it helps sync the hemispheres of the brain. So, and then that's kind of like a reset for them. And when it's out, then it's not going to keep bothering them to the same extent. And it's
Wow.
something they could do without me once they learn how to do it,
Right. That's great.
Yeah, it's
And
really
again,
helpful. Really, really
that's
helpful.
when my youngest son, I have 3 kids, when my youngest son was in kindergarten, he had a teacher, and she would have time during the day. She called it getting jiggy with it.
Uh-huh.
And she would have the kids stand up and just move and
Yeah, that's
get
great.
out, because they're young kids and they have all of this emotion,
They
and
do.
I was just thinking, it made me think of when he was younger. I thought that was the greatest thing I ever heard, because my older kids never had anything like that. You're a little kid and you go to school and you have to be like good all day and sit
Hmm.
and, not that you don't get to play, but to really get all of that energy out. I think it was a great tool. And I think that would be something that would help all kids. You know what I mean? Just
Oh, yeah,
having a
I
chance
absolutely
to,
agree.
yeah. And I think that would make the world better if we start when they're younger and
Mhm.
help them deal with all of these things, that would help everybody be better,
I
I think.
agree. And I think recess in that regards, recess is also really important in addition to that, which I know that some schools have been kind of getting away from that, or doing it less. I think that's a real disservice to the kids, because it's a
I
big
agree.
ask, even for an adult, to be able to be fully engaged for longer than 15 minutes, like 50.
Right.
For a kid, it's even smaller. And when I was active duty, you know, and I was a farms instructor, and part of my stuff was like learning about how people learn, about how what's the best way to teach them, keep them engaged. We were taught, and you know, the military did a lot of studies on this because we have to be efficient. You can really only teach somebody for about 50 minutes before you start to lose them. So 10 minutes uh, out of every hour, we will get up, go take a break, or we do calisthenics or something, you know, get the blood
Right.
flowing again so that we're able to attend, because we can have an overload of in hypnotherapy, you know, we call it message units. Like an overload of message units can send somebody into hypnosis. Um, you know, and it's kind of like their cognitive bandwidth gets full, right? And they need to decompress and get some of it out, and or process it in different ways, or take a brain break so that they can come back and attend better, which I also think would help with their behaviors,
I
you
agree.
know, in
I do.
class, because sometimes those behaviors are just starting to become an act of avoidance because they need a break and they're not getting it.
That's, yeah, just like our Apple Watches, right? I have an Apple Watch, and if you're not, I'm moving around all the time because that's how I roll. But
Right, right.
it tells you to stand, right? Every hour, once an hour, you get a message that says, "Okay, it's time to, get up, move
Oh,
around a
that's
little
great.
bit."
I
So,
don't have
yeah,
one, but
yeah.
that's awesome. I like it.
So it is. It's good, I think those are things that we need to, just like kindness and all the other things that we try to teach them. I think being able to get up and move is a good thing, but then there's so many standardized tests and so many things that you have to accomplish that they're more concerned with, and we're failing there too because academically we're down at the bottom. But we do have to make some changes all around to make it a better world, I think.
I agree.
One person at a time, right?
Right. Yeah.
There you go. Are your, Joyce, are your newer clients ever just like fascinated that that they have this power within them? You know, when you guide them through something like that and they
Oh
learn
yeah, they don't believe me.
that.
They don't believe me in the beginning. So it's they usually come to me because they're really distraught and they don't know how to fix their life. It's kind of gotten away from them. You know, so I always make sure that we go and we look back at their progress so that we can still start to like build up their belief, because I noticed that people with codependency and those type of issues, they're always looking at the next goal post and the next one and the next one. Okay, now I need to do this. They don't take enough time to appreciate what they do. And I'm like, how is anybody else going to appreciate you or what you do if you can't even do it? Right? Because we teach people how to treat us by our behaviors and how we show up. So I'm like, you're not even appreciating you. Look, why would somebody else do it? Um, or why would you believe them if they did, if you can't? So, you know, we'll go back and like, look how much difference it is since like a month from now, and or like just last week, or how you felt at the end of the session versus how you felt at the beginning. You know, we're always doing that comparison. I'm like, you do have the capacity to, you know, be okay and to be grounded without like having necessarily always having to have approval and like that constant
Right.
seeking behavior. Like you actually just right now can just sit here and you can actually just be okay.
And be proud because you're making
Yeah,
such
yeah, and be
progress.
proud of that.
Right. How do you get your clients? Like how do you advertise? Like it's so interesting.
I
Is it
don't.
okay? Well,
I don't really.
word of
I'll
mouth,
be
I
honest.
guess, right?
Most of it's
Word of
word of
mouth.
mouth. Actually, a lot of my clients are word of mouth. Some, you know, some of them were people that I knew for ages, and they just happened to know that I became a hypnotherapist, and they were curious. So I worked with, because I've also done other things, like I've helped people with smoking cessation. It's not my favorite, but I'll do it. Mostly I'm working, when I do that, I work with them on their anxiety, because if they're self-regulated, the urge to smoke is less. Um, you know, and or if they have other things going on. But the majority of my clients were either referred to me by somebody that
Had
knew
success.
how I worked, and they had a good rapport with me, you know, and that's also too where I get most of my spirit releasement um work from too also.
That's fascinating. May I ask you to describe what spirit releasement therapy is like?
Okay. Well, since a lot of the folks that I told you, you know, they identify as empath, they might be in the spiritual community. Okay. So sometimes people will feel that maybe there's something spiritual going on, not just not just how they're showing up or not just how their partner or their family members are showing up, but they might feel like there's some spiritual things that are going on in their life. And sometimes it is. You know, I know it's an uncomfortable topic for some people to think that there are spiritual forces at play in our lives. And then for other ones, you know, that are more comfortable with that, I will provide them that service. It can happen spontaneously, like in a session where I'm with a client. If something comes up where they feel like there's something not them that is influencing their behavior and it starts to speak up, I will address it. Otherwise, if the whole situation for them is a bit uncomfortable, like some of them have had paranormal type of activity in their house, and you know, like they thought it was poltergeist. A lot of poltergeist stuff is actually just psychic activity from the people that are distraught. You
Wow.
know, it's not normally actually a ghost, it's normally just psychic disturbances from the people. Anyway, so in that case, because that tends to be a bit too intense for them and they're not firmly grounded in themselves yet to do that, I work with my colleague Alicia, and she'll lead the session and I'll go under for them in hypnosis, and I will it's a light hypnosis, but I'll go under and I astral project to out of body to where they are, and I just kind of drop in to the area that they've asked me to work on, and I will and we'll record it so that they could see the whole session. But we drop in and take a look and see what other things are going on, and if there's stuff there, will clear it. You know, sometimes I will see, like, I don't want to give too much information about other people's sessions, but
Right.
you know, sometimes
Right.
they'll just be like pictures of what's happening to them psychologically. Sometimes there's actually attachments that need to be removed. And we'll do that. I always work with Alicia because I'm a bit of a somnambulist. So if I'm under for too long, I just kind of start doing my own thing. So so Alicia will just keep me on track, and
Keep you
so
grounded.
yeah, keep me grounded. She's like tethers me.
Right.
And you know, we'll talk about stuff. And sometimes if there's like, you know, one, there was a blended family, and the daughter was her mom had passed, her birth mom had passed, and the mother didn't want to leave her alone, and so
Okay.
she was just really affecting the little girl a lot. And so after the session, I've heard back from the client like 2 or 3 times already about how much their quality of life has improved. And, you know, we'll just send them, we'll do it separately without, you know, normally without the client present, just because we know it's a lot for them to process. And that we'll record the session kind of like we're recording now, and then I'll send them a copy of what happened. And even the family members or people in their lives who didn't know that they were doing the session, they've also reported that their quality of life's changed just because they were involved in it. So, I mean, it's an interesting process. I don't think a lot of people do it because it's scary for them, but I think somebody needs to be willing to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Wow.
Thank you for being the one who does it,
yeah.
and
Yeah, that's
your
amazing.
partner, Alicia. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to share about what it is that you're doing to make the world a better place? I mean, you've already explained quite a bit, and I really appreciate you doing all of that.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I feel like I could do more, but but I do what I can, and I show up where I'm able, and um, you know, universe willing, I'll be able to do it for a long time. But um I just see people when they show up, because I feel like since I'm not actively advertising, also I'm kind of introverted, so I don't feel like the type of person to put my face on a bunch of ads. So if they show up, they need it. So I will work with people as they show up. Um, I don't know. Other than that, I just try to make myself available in different ways, being involved in the veterans community, especially being a veteran.
And
I
thank
think
you for
it's
your
important.
service.
Well, thank you.
Really, thank you for your service.
I appreciate that. It was hard getting out, you know, to transition. And I think it's hard for most of us. So I try to be available for them as well. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
sharing,
Thank you. And
really.
thank you very much for doing this with us today.
Oh,
Right.
it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Joyce Morales, would you please let our audience know how they can contact you if they would like to?
Oh, okay. I have a website, and also I can provide Alicia's website. Hers is As You Are Hypnotherapy, and I'm actually on Heal Me, or they can find me at on my social media as the Practical Mystic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And
Very
but I will provide you with the links if you want them.
Okay, thank you. That would be great.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. This
Mm.
has been another episode of A Better World with Julann and Fran. And this week we were starring Joyce Morales. And thank you all for joining us.
Thanks for being with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so long for now.
All right. Bye.